Chairperson, I was cut off. Load shedding.
Yes, one apology.
Yeah, I've got two apologies from members. That is from Ms. van der Merwe and also Ms. Kanyile. Then there's also an apology from the Minister of Home Affairs, who's out of the country. There's also an apology from the Minister of Communication and Digital Technologies. She's also out of the country. And then there's also an apology from the Deputy Minister as well, from Communication and Digital Technologies. That's all, Chairperson, from my side.
Okay. Any other apology, members? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Matoons. That you have cut off, Mr. Matoons. I was saying that as you conclude, you will read the email that we have forwarded for your attention yesterday or day before yesterday on the complainant. That you'll do it as we conclude this presentation for the attention of the Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister Njabulo Nzunza, can we invite you to introduce your team and also introduce the presentation? Thank you, DM.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think that the apology from the Minister has been duly noted by the Portfolio Committee as presented. With me today, I am with the management team from the Department of Home Affairs. It is being led by the DG, Tommy Makote. I also have DDG Mavuso, who's going to lead us through the entire presentation. We also have DDG Sigama and the acting DDG Yusuf Simons dealing with immigration services, Mrs. Gama dealing with civic services. We also have the CFO, Mr. Gordon Holombe, and the acting DDG HR, Ms. Sefanyatso, as well as the Chief of Staff. And we also have Mr. Jean Ravele with us, who is being instrumental in our work with the BMA and around the ports of entrance. That is the entire team that we have brought with us today. I'm not too sure, Chair, whether should I now continue to introduce the presentation that we are bringing here today.
Yes, DM, I think you can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chairperson, before you proceed, there's a Department of Communication and SITA as well.
I'm not sure whether you... Okay.
No, I was saying in the introduction, we left out the SITA and Department of Communication.
Okay. DM?
Yes, Chair, we do have a team from SITA, and I think there was an apology from the Deputy Minister responsible for SITA. I do note that there is an acting DDG, there is a DDG from SITA, but we have been having engagements with them. I think the acting GM for SITA, Mr. Chenye, is here. Maybe he can introduce the team from SITA.
Thank you, DM. Through you, Honorable Chair. My name is Ntutule Tsenye, and I am representing SITA. With me, we've got Dr. Stella Vuma, who is the Deputy Chairperson of the SITA board that has joined us here today. We then also have got Mr. Musa Kumalo, who is the acting executive for our digital infrastructure. He's here with us. And then we've got Hulisani Zagere, who is the acting HOD for networks, with whom we have already engaged, who is also then here with us. So I think that will be the names that I've got. The acting MD will be joining us slightly later in the day after 9, but he will be joining us as well. So that will be that from my side. Thanks, DM.
No, thanks, Mr. Tsenye. The DM, can I establish so that we have one understanding? This is one report of both SITA and Home Affairs, and it will be presented by DDG Mavuso And when we interact, SITA will come in to comment, or they will comment after DDG Mavuso has presented, just for purpose of members, so that we're clear on this presentation. Can I get that understanding, dear?
Yes, it is a correct understanding, Chairperson. What we have is that we had initially sent 2 sets of presentation. One presentation had initially been purely DHA to indicate our interventions that we are doing as Department of Home Affairs in the war against queues. The second presentation was dealing with issues of connectivity, issues of systems downtime, which was a joint presentation between the Department of Home Affairs and SITA. We have since decided to then join the 2 presentations to make it one presentation. It is still containing the same information. DDG Mavuso will lead us in the presentation. I will introduce the presentation, Chair, because as you will know that the war on queues is actually a 2-way kind of an arrangement. It firstly involves our own intervention as Home Affairs and also around issues of network downtime. And as such, in terms of our own interventions, we deal with it through the rolling out of our services and expanding our footprint through using banks as part of a way of how we increase our footprint so that we have broader presence, thus reducing queues. It also deals with how we handle the issue of our mobile units, which has proven to be a very effective tool that we are nurturing to make sure that we reach out more to our people where they are placed, thus reducing queues in our frontline offices. We are also going to be presenting around the issues of BAPS, which we have now extended to 162 offices. That is the branch appointment booking system. We are also going to deal with issues of capacitation of Home Affairs, which has been a long-standing problem, and we're now resolving, I think, 545 posts, which account to about 83% have already been filled. We're going to talk to what impact that makes in our front line and how we are able to service our clients. And also on the mobile units, the growth from 110 to us procuring a further 20, and also just a reflection on the impact that they have made to us, even having to get about 126,000 applications for smart ID cards being done through mobiles, then take you through the banks, as well as the SITA DHA implementation plan, which deals with how we are responding to network outages, network architecture, and connectivity challenges that we have. The person who's going to be leading us will be Mr. Mavuso, and then members will then take us through the process, and SITA will then respond when we deal with some of the questions. And I will request through you, Chair, that we then give the floor to Mr. Mavuso to then lead us through the presentation. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, DM. DDG Mavuso.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members for the opportunity to present. I have a bit of a challenge here in this building in terms of network. So if I get cut off, I'll ask maybe Adam just to project the presentation on his side so that we continue. Chair, the presentation will cover a number of areas. We will just deal with the background and also the intervention strategies that we had agreed to in our last meeting with the committee. And then finally, just the recommendation in relation to what we're presenting to the committee. So the purpose of the presentation, as DM has indicated, is just to give the progress report on the interventions that have been made to resolve our challenges. We were here on the 30th of August last year, and there were a number of issues that were identified. Of the main issues was the issue of the development of the branch appointment booking system. At the time, we were able to share with the committee just a screenshot in terms of how this thing was going to look like on completion. So it was not a complete development. And then the second part was the capacity constraints, which we raised and said there's also issues of inadequate leadership in our front offices because of lack of management in certain areas. We raised the issues of networks and also the fact that we also want to do expansion of our footprint. And also we talked about the partnerships with the banks. And then further than that, the minister and deputy minister in their budget vote speech, they also alluded to some of the areas that continue to cause long queues in our offices and what we intend doing in relation to that. So in the next slide, Chair, we also just indicating that in that meeting, there was commitments that were made by both the department and SITA, and that we will be replacing our aging infrastructure. We highlighted those areas that Home Affairs would be focusing on. We also raised the issue around monitoring of our network on a daily basis to ensure that our measures are preventative rather than reactive. We also indicated that there is a detailed plan that SITA was developing to upgrade their switching centers because they are a core backbone of the network connectivity, particularly when we are servicing our offices, because they connect through those switching centers. They also raised the issue of aggregating network demand for government clients in particular, because traffic is not the same to different clients. And then they talked about the issue of providing multiple access links in order to connect. And we'll talk about that in the coming slides to be able to demonstrate how certain offices or switching centers are now able to have multiple access links. And also there was a commitment from SITA to also provide us with additional support as the department. So those are the issues that were raised in that particular meeting. So Chair, since the last briefing of the portfolio committee, there's been a focused significant attention by SITA in terms of availing certain resources in addressing some of the potential points of failure, which obviously continue to negatively affect us as the department because we are the face of this failure. And also there has been some significant progress in addressing some of the several single points of failure as will be outlined in the presentation. Chair, the first intervention that we have made, which is showing great success, was what we brought here as the branch appointment booking system. I think this was, we were venturing into unknown territory in a sense that no government service has ever been offered through an appointment system. But I think because of the challenges that we've been having, we then agreed that we'll launch this booking system. We're currently running it on a hybrid model where we do not have 100% booking only offices, but we're running appointment system, a hybrid model. We'll explain also the benefits and the disadvantages also that we are picking up. But I think there's been a lot of positives and less than the negatives. Chair, as we have indicated, this booking system is just for now for smart ID cards and passport. The reason for that is that when we did the time and motion study, we're able to determine the time that the client actually is able to spend in a queue. So therefore, you can be able to actually measure the number of clients that you can service in an hour, for an example. So then you determine the slots and also the number of counters that are available gives you that particular information. I think also the feedback that we have received from the clients through various channels have indicated they're quite satisfaction about their ability to get in and out of the office within 30 minutes or so, some even less than that. We've seen the system as we are rolling out has been used by over 200,000 clients. It's continuous. Offices like Centurion, Randburg, they're now hitting over 95 appointments a day. So meaning that I think we are getting somewhere in this regard. Chair, the only issue which we did raise is that when we developed the system, we also created the capability for application and collections. So what then happens is that when everybody was now applying for collections, you'd find that now booking for collections that there's no slots for applications. So what we have now did, we discontinued the collection component. We are now developing a separate, within the one system of the booking, we're going to separate a separate line where an office will receive a list for applications and will receive a list for collections. An office like, for an example, Randburg will be at an advantage because where they are doing collections is a different building, where they're doing applications a different building. So meaning that they can be able to service. There are other offices that are able to separate the queues like that, where collections is separate. Belleville does that very well. And when collection is application is also separate. So the reason what we're trying to do is that you don't want to end up having booked clients for collections only, while application clients do not get a slot. So there's an approach that we are getting so that we are able to guarantee the clients the end-to-end customer experience in terms of that provision. Chair, when they were during the budget vote speech, we were still at 24 pilot offices, which had a system at that particular time. Where we are now, we are sitting at actually has 163 offices, Chair. I think when we were writing this presentation, the medium offices were still at 119. So now we are at 120 medium offices. So it's 163 offices. And then the offices also are being provided with tablets so that they can be able to help clients who don't have access to computers. Because when some clients who are coming as walk-in clients, they see the queue is long, and then they prefer that they be booked when they realize that actually there are customers who come on a booking slot and they're able to be serviced. So also in terms of ensuring that we don't leave anyone behind, we move in unison because that people are raising the issue of lack of data to be able to access. But also, I think in our discussion at EBSCO with the DG, one of the issues that we are looking at is to zero rate some of the government services so that when people they don't need airtime to go to our website. So we're looking at those particular options. And then, Chair, the issue of communications to clients, we're continuing to intensify that, and change management in terms of staff. It's been intensified. We are going to do a lot of activation on parts in different areas. We have programs that have been planned for Mpumalanga for now in Limpopo and KwaZulu-Natal. We'll then be going also to other provinces in the beginning of the new calendar year. So this is just a picture, Chair, that I was indicating that large offices, we completed them in June already. The 43 one, the 120, so that's what gives me the 163. Initially, that 120 was 119. So now the last two offices has been completed. So by the end of October, we had 120 there. And then the 34 will definitely be completed. These are small offices now at the end of this current month. This is just some of the feedback, Chairperson, unsolicited feedback. There's an avalanche of those that we are picking up on social media, where really I think the booking system is somebody has indicated, for example, this lady, gentleman this lady in Richards Bay had said she was in and out in 20 minutes. So I think it's quite a very impressive turnaround time. As we have said before, once a client is in front of the officials, then they're able to be processed. Our bigger headache was always been the queue. So now the mere fact that they don't have to come in the morning, so it makes life much more easier. So, Chair, that's a story on PAPS. We'll continue to monitor it. We'll continue to intensify and ensure that we move forward. Chair, the second issue that was bedeviling us was the capacity constraints and inadequate leadership at our front offices. After having left that particular meeting in August, there was a conversation in the department through the DG and the head of HR. There was and CFO and other colleagues who made inputs in relation to the business case that was submitted to National Treasury, where we then got an approved business case for additional allocation on the COE, and one that the COE was allocated. So we're now able to distribute that money to fund at least 742 positions across the organization. And that amount is depicted in the MTEF to indicate that over and above our COE budget, this is the additional amount that we received. And then, Chair, I think of significance was that through the Minister and the Deputy Minister, a decision was taken that for all of front offices, we have to fund all of them, because we had offices that were led by even junior officials and not duly appointed. So that instability of leadership does have a potential. So no office now will be left without a manager as we are filling those positions. So we are going to be improving that particular intervention. Where we are with the recruitment process, which we started as early as May, in terms of advertising those positions, the positions that were allocated to provinces were 654. 545 of those have been filled. And then at head office, there was 88 positions. I think our focus through the recruitment team from HR was to ensure that actually at call phase, that's where we need to spend our energy in and fill those particular positions. Then after that, we then obviously looked at corporate office to be able to fill some of the positions. So that is obvious being completed. This is just a status with the BMA. Where there were 241 positions that were allocated for BMA. So 207 have been filled. So they still have to fill other positions that are of management. So they are in the process of finalizing the chair. Chair, we thought we must just bring this spreadsheet or the diagram just per province to indicate the status, to say of the 84 positions, for an example, which areas, if you look at the Eastern Cape, with the district manager operations, there were 2 positions, local office managers, there were 12, civic services supervisor, there were 2, then mobile managers, and then also admin clerks, hospital clerks. Then with the hospital clerks, we're quite keen because this is a project that we are pushing to ensure that the hospitals where there's a high volume of beds, which is why we've categorized them a priority 1 to priority 3, which those are the ones that gives us 5,000 plus a year, and also 4,000 up to 5,000, and 2,000 up to 4,000 beds per year. So those ones we want to ensure that the staff manning those particular offices, and then the remaining officials that were allocated for the Eastern Cape was the control immigration officers and immigration officers. Chair, I think particularly there are a lot of work that is done by inspectorate in provinces. Without this capacity, obviously, it was hampering, because there were some of the areas that you did not have an immigration officers to be able to deal with the cases. So this is the Free State, and then also I think we thought we just share this as a scouting. There is a slide, Chair, I will just go through it, which just gives a summary of all the provinces. These are the posts allocated to immigration. Chair, in particular, there were 12 positions that were allocated with the Cape Town Refugee Office. Last week, Friday, we were busy in Cape Town with the Refugee Reception Office that has been, there's a new site that has been now secured. Construction is almost to completion there. So therefore, the filling of those positions, in particular the center manager position and the remaining ones, are critical so that that center can run effectively. And then we've got also the other positions in the other refugee offices. And then this one also relates to some of the adjudicators that we are adding. Chair, there's 16 positions that have been allocated for adjudicators. As you know, that we want to strengthen that particular area. I think when we presented our performance information in particular on immigration services, you could see that actually there were some of the delays in the turnaround times for some of the categories of visas that we applied for. So obviously, if you get additional capacity, you'll be able to do that particular way. This is just in IT, Chair. We're strengthening IT with 10 more positions. So they are continuing with the process of filling. Again, we thought we just need to be transparent in terms of the current status where we are. Some of the exercises that we must undertake is to look at criminal records, do SACWA verifications, and ensure that whoever comes on board, we've done proper due diligence on those individuals that we are bringing on board. This one is on the institutional planning and support. There are 4 positions that are allocated. Again, there's work that has been done in that regard to fill the positions. And then this is counter-corruption and security services. They've been given additional positions. There's about 13 positions. I think the bigger chunk of it goes to investigations, where you have 8 investigators that are going to be employed and also distributed across the provinces in order for to help us with a lot of investigations, because they can man multiple cases that occur across the provinces. And then this one also relates to then the BMA. This is the provincial summary that I wanted to be able to demonstrate. In terms of the post description on the left is your district manager operations, and then the LOM is local office manager at level 12 for large offices. For medium offices is level 10, and then for small offices, and then it goes like that. So across the provinces, what has been allocated and what has been filled. So we are pushing to ensure that all that work is completed on time. And then obvious, again, here in the same way I was explaining the reasons for variance in terms of, it's just to say that there are activities that must be completed, which are verifications and competency assessments, which are quite important. I'll just jump this slide. Just, Chair, to indicate that of that 545, in terms of the breakdown, we have employed about 301 unemployed youth. These are people who have not been who are not in employment. Now they've in employment. So those are the people that we have employed, and also some of them obviously come from, they were interns, some of them are cadets in the department. There's been promotion, obviously, internally and also and externally recruited people. Those positions that have been vacated internally through internal promotions are being advertised. Because, Chair, I think the number of those who stood a good chance to take up positions like office managers because of the experience that they've gained in the department. So it was obviously going to be expected that promotions were to occur as a result of that new recruitment. Chair, I'm not going to spend time much on this one. This is just the induction and training. So just to indicate that when did we do the onboarding of the in August and September, and also the virtual induction program that we conducted. There's also a training program that has been underway, happening virtually and physically and also online. And also just to indicate the type of skills that our colleagues have been trained in our collaboration with the School of Government. Again, I will not spend time on this one. So, Chair, the third intervention relates to our footprint expansion. I think one of the recognition that we have made is that mobile units, have become a very important channel in which we are engaging and providing our services through outreach programs and other initiatives. So currently, as we have said, we've got the 110 units distributed across the provinces based on the size of the province, the population density, and some of the catchment areas that are known for being underserviced. We have 4 mobile units that are stationed at office for special projects and also for testing new initiatives. We do from time to time get requests for minister to avail certain vehicles to go to some of the interventions, like for an example, when we have some of the law enforcement operations. Also, provinces, they have their full deployment plan on the usage of mobiles in rural areas. I know, for an example, in an area like in the Eastern Cape, in the Krisani district municipality, where offices are only located in a place like Alwal North and then we have to then take office mobiles to other areas. In the Eastern Cape, in the Limpopo, we had a huge outreach program in Sekhukhune region, and also in Northwest. So those are some of the areas that we've realized that this is actually a very important. Deputy Minister has already alluded to the 126,000 smart card applications that were processed through mobiles last year. So again, about 111, which the number is increasing, that in the first 2 quarters of the current financial year, we've already done about 111,000. So I think we do realize that this is actually a channel that is working, and we just need to intensify its growth and management thereof. Chair, through provision of additional funding, 20 mobile units are coming in this financial year, and this will be incremental, obvious, over the coming years. The plan is also to procure as many mobile units in order to reach out to service points for those citizens who are not able to visit. Our DHA access model that we indicated that we need to at least have about mobile units that will be able to visit almost 800 service points, meaning that we don't need 800 trucks, but we need 800 service points where we'll be visiting on a regular basis on those under-service areas. And we do believe that mobile services will become the biggest channel of bricks and mortar static facilities that we also have in certain areas. Chair, this is just to show the types of these Mitsubishi Fuso trucks were the old generation that we had, but we have actually have to remodel them because they were still in working condition. So we had to ensure that we obviously install the system in those. So the new ones, the Isuzu ones, we bought them in 2018 and 2021, so they're quite new. So we also have those mobile ones, and then we have also got these 28 of the Mercedes and Volkswagen Crafter 2018 model. We bought one Quantum model in 2018 as also just as a demo to see actually if we move towards even smaller vehicles to get into areas where trucks sometimes cannot be. So that's one of those that we're looking at in terms of growing. Chair, this is just to show how the layout at the back of the truck in terms of the connectivity, what we need for us to function. So I'm not going to spend much on that. We'll talk about it in the presentation in a slide that we with SITA on the flat panel for VSET. It took us quite long to ensure that the functionality of this unit is actually working effectively. Where we are now, we're quite happy that you can now actually put this unit in more vehicles as we move forward. So this is a very important development because there are areas, Chair, where there's no towers for MTN or Vodacom to connect the 3G, particularly in rural areas. So the satellite coverage, because it covers 99% of landmass of our country, you are then able to connect there. Actually, there was a demonstration when we were in Neleni in the Eastern Cape with the minister, where the trucks could not connect because we had the generators, but there was load shedding in the area. So it means the towers of our mobile telephonic service providers, they couldn't connect because they had no batteries in them. So they rely purely on Eskom. But the truck that had the VSET could connect because it was not relying on that. So I think that was this is just to demonstrate how we've distributed the 110 units, 106 units, with therefore, as I said, the remaining at head office. Ideally, we want to increase these units. As I said, with the 20 coming, we'll look at more the rural provinces that need more services in this regard. Chair, on the partnership with the banks, this is a project that started many years ago, and I think it has not been moving at the pace that we had wanted. Chair, just to indicate that when this project started in 2016, our plan was to be able to say every bank that is a member of the Banking Association of South Africa should have an opportunity to participate in this. Hence, our view to National Treasury at the time was that because we're not going to exclude any bank, there's no issue relating to procurement process that we wanted to enter into a partnership with BASA, and BASA obviously allowed their members. But that was pushed back. So we spent quite a number of time, years actually, now having to go back and then to do to advertise for a Triple P, to appoint a transaction advisor, to go through all the treasury approvals for Triple P. And right at the tail end of the process, we then granted the permission for exemption to go and sign directly with the banks. At that particular time, when we were ready to sign with the banks had obviously now been working with us this journey of utilizing our services, their facilities, picking up some of the lessons that they were picking up, particularly on the issue of the support on network, the turnaround times, to give the banks the sites support for network downtime and things like that. So they've raised a number of problems which we are dealing with them together with SITA, because in the majority, I think there were turnaround times in relation to network connectivity. So they did not want, obviously, their risk, their reputation on them, and they needed assurance, and also us to put resources on site will support those. Because this agreement will bring with it, warm bodies, which in terms of staff that will train and deploy in the sites, and also it will bring us the equipment and the floor space. And ideally by now, Chair, we should be sitting not at 27 sites, at least our plan was that by this time, we should be sitting at more than 200 sites that have their services. So in the interim, Chair, we did extend the agreement of the pilot because it was expiring at the end of July this year. So we've now pushed it to March 2023, and our discussions with BASA are continuing. So we expect that we would have signed the partnership agreements by then. These are just the sites, the 27 I'm referring to. We are activating another one in Northern Cape at Standard Bank Katu Mall. So we've just sent staff to do stress testing of the connectivity and others. And so they are taking workings for now, just as to test that. Otherwise, we will then be able to move forward. Okay, now let me then turn to the last component of the presentation, which is, again, in terms of the intervention strategies, was the implementation plan that we agreed to that we'll do with SITA. SITA, in terms of their support on the network infrastructure, they've contracted a broadband Infraco, which is a company that obviously inherited some of the infrastructure from Eskom and Transnet Rail. There are some challenges in relation to that infrastructure in terms of it not being looked after. And also the issues of load shedding is one of those issues that impact on the downtime. There are also still challenges with the core network provider, which resulted obviously in the disruption of some of the services. And also the impact of or the persistent economic sabotage through vandalism, the very significant impact on the delivery of IT services. We stated when we were in the committee the areas which are causing us to have perpetual network outages. Obvious, one of them is our own dependence as the department, which is the power supply issue, the cable theft, the aging equipment, network architecture and applications, and the demands on the data demands on the limited bandwidth. So we'll explain some of those. So, Chair, maybe just to start with the one of the power supply environmentals. It is true that when we were modernizing offices, we were putting generators as backup to ensure that they don't go down. Obviously, the issue of maintenance of those generators is another issue that we just need to obviously pay attention to. And there were non-modernized offices that only utilize the National Population Register that do not have a backup, and obviously leading to some of the failures. Obviously, we are looking at other options to have backup power in those offices, Chair, because not all the offices are big enough to deserve a generator that is worth 200,000 rand. But you could find other alternatives like installing solar panels and battery backup power just to power the NPR computers in those smaller offices. So those are some of the options we are looking at to be able to do that. Obviously, as I said, the issue of ESCOM load shedding continues. And then on the aging equipment, Chair, there is continuous work that is being done now on the routers that needs to be replaced and switches. Again, it goes back, Chair, to say that infrastructure sometimes can carry you through up until a particular period. That is why sometimes, as part of maintenance, we have to remove switches and routers that are not dead, that are not broken, but because they have now reached their lifespan. Therefore, the fact that they are still operating, we should not be trying to sweat the asset by any means necessary, but we should invest back into the equipment, irrespective of whether it's still functioning or not. And then, obviously, I've talked about the issue relating to the fiber networks being cut, the LTE towers, so the towers that are damaged for scrap metal, and also batteries that are stolen in those GSM connection towers. Chair, on the network architecture, obviously, SITA has had to commit additional funding to deal with this particular matter of redesigning network architecture, but also changing the issue relating to copper data lines, which must be replaced by a more modern technology like fiber. Because also, I think the difference between the two is that obviously copper carries value in the black market, but fiber infrastructure is actually plastic, so it does not carry any market value. So at least if we replace with that, so we'll be able to get much more better benefit out of that. Chair, I've also talked about the issue of DHA infrastructure, where we are obviously ensuring that we're refreshing that particular equipment. And then on an applications, we're looking obviously redesigning some of our applications. The work is continuing to ensure that we are able to integrate some of the systems and deal with issues of fragmentation, but also replace some of the applications. That's why we're doing some of the system releases to replace it with more modern infrastructure rather than the old infrastructure. And then the last part, Chair, which I talked about earlier, was the demands on data demands on limited bandwidth. I think with the introduction of many applications that needs huge bandwidth, I mean, people are utilizing, when you use biometrics, for example, you will need a different bandwidth. And that is why when with the biometric movement control system at the airports, we're improving the infrastructure, the bandwidth to those lines. At some point, they were below 1 meg. So we are increasing those to 2 megs. In some of the areas, we want to move up to 1 gig or 10 gig line because the demand on the bandwidth is huge. But also there are other things where we find that there's demand for verification systems leading to competition for limited bandwidth. I made a practical example that about 2 years back, it was in December, where we experienced outage in our offices, and we only discovered that actually the demand that was placed on our harness was because there was one IP address that was quite busy on the system. And when we picked up, it was NSFAS finalizing the applications for students. So because they were verifying those against our system. So we need to be able to find a mechanism to say, how do we relieve pressure on the system that is in production versus those who want to do verification. And also the issue of usage of video conferencing facilities result obvious in the spike during the office hours. So again, that's why when people are utilizing platforms like this, so it's better for them to switch off their videos to reduce the demand on the bandwidth. So at a high level, Chair, I will just touch on these issues relating to the investment plan that we discussed with SITA. When we're in the meeting, we then agreed that the SITA will have to make a huge investment to overhaul their core network. They've committed that over a period of 5 years, an amount of about 100 million has been set aside for that. So that work is continuing in relation to that. So we're quite grateful for that investment. Chair, this is just a topology design of the SITA network, again, which just demonstrate how our offices are connecting. For example, if you look at on the right-hand side with the DHA offices, and then red star there, which with number 2, that represent obvious what we refer to as SITA switching centers. So obvious, what we have been saying is that if, for an example, the offices in KZN connect through a Pietermaritzburg switching centers, they should be able to reroute to another switching center if that one is down. And that work is continuing to be able to do that all for all switching centers, so that we don't create a single point of failure, but to create multiple links to be able to reroute traffic where you then obviously don't have offices that are offline and then contribute to long queues. So really this topology just explained how that design is sorted out. Chair, the next slide just shows you the summary of high impact incidents that are affecting the network. This is some of the areas where we look at the root causes of the outage, what is the remedial action that have been taken to restore services, and what is a sustainable solution for long term. And also it should be noted that when the core network is down, that government departments obviously are not able to access applications and solutions. These include transversal systems like PESAL, BUS, Logis, and others. Even though you might find that the services on the SITA side, they might be up, but you find that the links, obvious, that connect to provinces. Let's take for an example, there was a time when there was a connectivity problem in Modimolle. It didn't only affect Home Affairs, it affected the entire province of Limpopo, and that government departments could not connect. But while we in other provinces were able to continue with our work, but it's because of that line that was going to Limpopo in Modimolle. Chair, this next slide just demonstrates that there were some incidences that we had in KwaZulu-Natal in Pietermaritzburg, for an example, where clients that are connecting in that Pietermaritzburg POP, which is point of presence, they experienced an accumulated downtime of about 28 hours. This was happened in June. And then the root cause of that downtime was due to the brand infraco multiple failures. There was a break in transition between Kronstadt and Bethlehem, and also a signal loss in Ludorongstadt. I'm sorry to pronounce that wrong. And Bloemhof. And also now what has been happened is that there was an alternative provider that has been appointed that has installed alternative links, which were commissioned on the 22nd of June. So since then, I think the issue of overutilization has been managed in Pietermaritzburg. So we're still yet to have a high incident there. For now, we're still quiet. In Modimolle, the clients that were connecting in Limpopo also experienced some time of about 43 hours, and this was in August. We actually even responded to one of the oral replies that the minister actually responded to, specifically talked about this matter of Modimolle in August, where the root cause of that downtime was the fiber cable that was vandalized between Pretoria North and Modimolle, and also there was also fiber break between Tzaneen and Soekmekara. Again, Chair, in this one, there was a service provider that was appointed to install the alternative links, and then that was commissioned on the 18th of August. And we're still happy now that no downtime has been experienced in that line. up until the commissioning of the new links. Chair, this one was another incident in the Northern Cape, which happened late August, early September. Again, that the clients that were connecting in Uppington, they experienced an accumulated downtime of about 924 hours, which is unprecedented. It was quite a long time. And then the root cause was also on the fiber break at 81 kilometers in a place called Juno. So there was also another 8 kilometers that was also a fiber that broke in that particular area. For some reasons, the indication was that there was also extremely high winds in that area. So the challenge experienced in Uppington also is the lack of connectivity infrastructure from other service providers. Chair, the bigger problem is that these commercial telcos, when they don't have commercial value in an area where they'll be able to put infrastructure for consumption by private sector so that they can get the return on investment, they hardly invest in it. So you end up sometimes sitting with one service provider that's servicing that particular line. So we are looking through SITA, the alternative service provider that will obviously provide the redundant links before the end of November this year. Chair, the next one, which is a huge headache, is the Northwest corridor, which is Potchefstroom and Mabato. The clients again in this, they've been experiencing huge problems in that particular area, where now in September, there was about 18.3 hours of downtime. Again, there was a fault on the BBI network in the North Station and Oberholzer, and also between North Station and Heidelberg. Again, the link that was also connecting Potchefstroom was also suffering from intermittent overutilization. There is a service provider that will obviously provision for redundant links by the end of November, as per what SITA has indicated to us. For Mabato, this work has been completed at the end of October, so we are monitoring that very close, because when we're busy with the Q2 performance target, Northwest kept on reporting these problems, so which obviously was affecting some of the performances like birth registration and other activities. Chair, then let me move to the next one, which relates to some of the infrastructure issues. This one where SITA was obviously supposed to deal with the issue of improving some of the infrastructure, particularly in the switching centers. They've installed new equipment in the switching centers, so that work is continuing. And also they've installed what we call the software-defined network, which is a modern terminology for a network that is actually performing much better. It's a new generation kind of network performance. So the work has been undertaken in that regard to ensure that there's improvement there. So the expectation is that all the points of presence, in other words, the switching centers, will be completed by the end of the current financial year to ensure that they give us optimum performance in relation to connectivity and downtime. So that's quite important that we explain that. And then on the issue of environmentals, this is now the remote environmental management by SITA. This obviously entails a proactive monitoring of the switching centers to prevent downtime. This is a service provider that has been appointed. There are 25 switching centers that have been set up, except Cape Town. So that work is concluded now. They're able to monitor those switching centers. Cape Town is relocating their switching center. So until that is completed, then that work will be done. Chair, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but this is basically what it's a specific application, which is or technology, which is called an SD-WAN, obvious WAN represent wide area network. So again, I'm not going to bore the committee with the technical jargon of this, but basically what the team has been trying to explain here is that they are utilizing this new technology in order for us to improve the wide area network connection, utilizing obvious, broadband internet, 4G, LTE. So in other words, we're utilizing multiple links to guarantee the last mile connectivity to the offices. Chair, then the next one relates to the internet failover and NPR failover. That work is also being undertaken. So basically here, we're saying that internet must have, when there's a fault, must be able to reroute. NPR, when there's a fault, must be able to reroute to another line. So the failover represent precisely that particular work. So that internet failover work was completed on the 31st of March this year. So, and then the one relating to the NPR, there was some downtime in the current financial year on that NPR failover, but the work is being completed on the 4th of September. SITA implemented a redundant Ethernet cable provider to ensure that we are able to have a reroute of that NPR should there be any downtime. So NPR is one of the systems that we hardly have any downtime on it. Actually, when we talk about a system that is on 99%, that's the NPR. So that one we're quite satisfied with. Then, Chair, on this one, it relates to, again, the issue relating to the SITA core network, as I've indicated earlier. There's some challenges that we've experienced, obviously, with the broadband infra core network as a result of theft and many other failures that they are having. So SITA has gone to National Treasury to request to appoint an alternative provider to deal with the issue of the network downtime. So the Treasury has approved the request. So the alternative service provider is going to be appointed. So currently the alternative has been appointed, and the provider has installed 17 of the 21 core data lines to date. So at least not only are we going to now depend on the infra alone, but we'll also be dealing with the second alternative provider. So our expectation is that the work continues, and then once SITA completes that, then they will advise us. So they envisage that by 31st March next year, we should not be having any sleepless nights. And then the other one, Chair, is related to previously what SITA had raised with us on the SLA, that we took an SLA that is not gold. So we had submitted to SITA some of the sites that with the list of sites currently connecting with multiple links. So we said then they must do a proof of concept in that regard. So we were quite clear, Chair, after that completion of that work, and to say, like, there's still more work that needs to be done on the network architecture, because we are saying that the value of dual data lines is important for redundancy where it is doable. But there are certain areas where if you don't have multiple links, there's no point of you having dual links. So that obvious discussion was concluded this year to say that we will only connect certain sites to a higher SLA based on the fact that it's able to have redundancy. And then on the partnership with the banks, I think I've alluded to that, that SITA and DHA have had interaction with the banks. They've identified action areas, and these include improving uptime through the usage of a secure cloud infrastructure, and also sharing of skills and joint monitoring of system where possible. But also what we have also done in this regard, we have also committed that we'll convert our live capture into a web-based application. So work has been undertaken. We're expecting one of the releases now, which is going to be coming, a phase 3 release of live capture, to also release the web-based, so which will be easier to support, because if it's a web-based application, we're able to to troubleshoot and support remotely. And then the next one, Chair, is just to the issue of the consolidation of access links per province. We had agreed that the SITA will have a revised approach for connectivity per region, also migration of some of the access links from copper to other areas. So SITA is appointing a service provider per region to do that work, and also Northwest will be used as a pilot in terms of that particular work. Chair, this is just to demonstrate the completed work on the alternative links, where SITA was able to commission some of the links. For example, we're saying that Bisho, when you're connecting from Bisho, you must not only connect via East London. So they have a Bisho to Cape Town link, East London to Cape Town link, Mthatha to Cape Town link, PE to Cape Town, and Bisho to Pietermaritzburg, and so forth. So those are some of the links. Again, it's going back to what we had wanted for many years, that one POP or one switching center must not be connecting to one line, so it must have multiple. So that work is continuing in this regard. So there's still some that will be completed at the end of this month. For an example, when it comes to Uppington, there's a VZ panel. Again, this is what you've said. We've concluded that work on the 1st of September, and then on the issue of the environmentals, I've talked about the issue of the batteries. That it's an ongoing activity as a department. But I think we also need to take stock of the 200 sites where we have UPSs in terms of functionality, but also, as I said, come up with alternative ways to connect the smaller offices in that regard. Again, there's work that could
DDG Mavuso?
Enterprise architecture, we are
DM?
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a network challenge there with DDG Mavuso. Can I request that Eddie beams the presentation from where it was, and then Mr. Mavuso can try and switch off his video, and then we follow the presentation through Eddie's beaming.
So I'm back, Chairperson.
Okay, you're back. Okay, you can proceed.
Yes, but I think if Eddie can project for me, because I'm on the iPad now, because I was on the laptop, it's the one that switched off. So I'll appreciate that. But basically, where I was, Chair, I was just explaining the issue of the secure enterprise architecture.
Can you hold DDG?
Okay.
Mr. Matonsi?
Yes, Chair.
Are we able to, or Mr. Salmon, are we able to intervene?
Okay, because I just got it now. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, Eddie, I'm also not given the option to share.
Oh, you have it.
No, I'm not given the option. I can't share.
Okay, let me give you the rights. I have given you the rights, Adam.
Yeah, I know, but I can't. It's not giving me the option to share the presentation.
Oh, okay.
And do you have a presentation, Mr. Matonsi?
Yeah, I trying now to.
Eddie, I'm showing. See, can you see it?
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, just go to the page where DDG Mavuso was.
Yes, Chair, I was on slide 67. No, Chair is sharing a wrong presentation.
It's just busy opening.
Is this a, yeah? Can you go to slide 66? Is it 66, Mr. Mabus? Yes.
Yes, Chair. On slide 66.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was still explaining, thanks very much, Adam and Chair. I was still explaining then that on the issue of secure enterprise architecture, obvious, our biggest issue is to look at the issues relating to the business applications, to look at the issue of the security, the issue of the utilization of activity. Then the next one, Chair, is on the issue of management of local area network.
I didn't see a door.
Yeah, well, there's
someone's disturbing our meeting.
Yeah. You
Sorry,
proceed.
Chair, I removed the Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Let's proceed, DDG. Sorry for that.
Yes. No, thank you very much, Chair. So I'm saying then the last part is relating to the work that we are currently doing with SITA in terms of procuring routers and switches through SITA supply chain process as part of improving local area network management. So if we go to the next slide. Chair, next slide again is to deal with the issues of the application management. So this is a Home Affairs related responsibility to create more efficiencies in our live capture environment, for an example, where so we're giving SITA a tasking letter relating to the live capture applications. We also asked them to publish a bid for live capture system, which they did. So we're just expecting that they finalize that particular work so that we can get a service provider for live capture, which will give us obvious support in maintenance, but also some of the issues relating to the network design. But also we want completed within 12 months so that we can have a sense of functionality of live capture as it is. And then the last part was on the development of Security Operations Center, which is SOC. SITA obviously had gone to start the procurement process for that. We had hoped that they were going to finalize that, but in March, that procurement process was not successful. So they had to re-engage the market. So that is pushing us back to the 2023-24 financial year. Enterprise Operations Center management, and also provide us with preventative measures to proactively detect anything that is cybercrime related. Next slide then deals with, just go to the next slide, Adam. Next slide just deals with the issue relating to monitoring and support. SITA obviously is providing some support in terms of monitoring, which is performed early in the morning before office is open, and then after, also during the weekend and public holiday, some level of monitoring of our system to ensure that we can pick up some of the downtime issues. They're utilizing obviously their network operations center to monitor our wide area network. They do that 24/7 and on a daily basis. Then the next part deals with issues of support. If you go to the next slide. Yeah, just the support services, obviously, again, where we're getting support services in our data center operations and network and information security, and also data support there by SITA, also our network support, and also the applications maintenance from SITA officials include some of the activities that are listed there, as they are hosting the mainframe for our NPR and other systems, and also the issue of internet links and network networks. So in a nutshell, if you go to the next slide, we are presenting just this update with the SITA to say in terms of where we are with the activities. This is a governance structure that we agreed that will create a governance structure. So there is a SITA management executive that meets on a quarterly basis. The last meeting was in September. So the expectation is that we'll be meeting again now early December in the third quarter. And then also there are project engagements that are happening on a regular basis at weekly and monthly level at different levels. For example, SITA teams sit with the SITA Modernization Steering Committee, so where they carry out a number of activities. So Chair, we're presenting then this to the portfolio committee to note the reports and the progress that we have made since the last time we're here. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Titi Chimavuso, for taking us through the report, the presentation. DM, I'll request you to invite the Deputy Chair of the Board if there's comment to before members interact with the report, or any member of a SITA, if there are areas they want to further input. Before invite members, we'll also call them when we are dealing with the response from members' comments or questions. DM?
Yeah, thank you very much. I will suggest that Mr. Chenye just note a few of members of SITA who would like to make some contribution or additions to the presentation that was led by Mr. Mavuso. Then he will be able to better direct us. And obviously then take the member of the board if there are any comments.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks, DM. I think from my side, Mr. Mavuso has done an excellent work, really, of presenting the joint initiatives that we are doing. Of course, you would have seen, obviously, from the updates that quite some significant work has gone into making sure that all the activities that we needed to do from the previous meeting of the 31st of August, that we have actually done that. I think from SITA side, we are excited that we've been able to really put some investment into the program. As you have seen, 400 million being set aside to make sure that we really upgrade the networks and really deal with the issues that have been hindrances, causing all these queues, of which 160 million has already now been spent, in the second year of the 5-year program. We also very excited about the capacity support that we've been providing, including, with the architecture, to make sure that, as DG Mavuso has just shown on that typology design, where the potential, points of failure might be, to try and really make sure that we can address all of those. I think if you also look into, the work that has been done with some of the, high impact sites, like Pietermaritzburg, which has really been a big issue for us. We're happy that we've now been able to really deal with those issues, besides the economic vandalism that we've really seen a lot of in the passing period. But at least now we have really been able to stabilize quite significantly. If you look at the work, with the Mabatu Potchefstroom Northwest corridor, I think some great work has been done in that space as well. We are aware that with the infrastructure deficiencies that are there in the Uppington area, and the unwillingness, obviously, from the various telecommunications companies to invest in those remote areas, that we have experienced some challenges and delays, but we are glad as well that by the end of this month, November, we would have also stabilized that environment quite significantly. I think the rollout of this software defined network has also been quite a huge impact, as well as also being able to bring the alternative service provider, having received all the blessings from National Treasury that we could do that. We have seen that we have really resolved quite a number of the challenges that we have, putting all the equipment in the switching centers and really beginning to migrate to make sure that we are more and more stable as we go along. I think some of the feedbacks that are also coming from the users are very satisfying to us. So I think all of that has really been covered in the presentation. But I think, Chairperson, the working relationship between the DHA and ourselves is also one that we really appreciate, and all the top-to-top engagements, with our acting managing director, the DG, ourselves, with the DDG. It's really been amazing to make sure that we can come to this point. So we really are very appreciative of the progress that we believe, has been demonstrated. I will leave it at that, Chairperson and DM. I'm not sure if, I know the ADM has joined, and the Deputy Chair is here as well. If maybe any of them would want to put in a word or two, then we can defer back to the DM. Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks, DM.
Mr. Tsenye, you're making life difficult for DM. If you can ask the members of the board if they have to comment. Or let me assist you, Deputy Chair of the board, if there's any matter to comment on.
Thanks, Chair.
Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, Chair. I am fully covered. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. What we'll do, we'll then go to ask or request members of the committee to comment and to raise questions. Then we'll ask the DDG Mavuso to respond. We'll ask SITA to respond. We'll get the Deputy Chair of SITA to, she will delegate who must take the responses. Then we'll invite the Deputy Minister to comment and cover up some of the issues that we could have commented on, and I think that's how we'll then run the deliberations in the meantime. I will invite Honorable Mulekwa, Honorable Tito, Honorable Lokwase, Honorable Ross, Honorable Pillay. I'm aware that there are network challenges, so members, you will have to navigate in this deliberation. In that order, Honorable Mulekwa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me start by appreciating both presentation from Department of Home Affairs and SITA. And we also would like to acknowledge the intervention and the progress made regarding on queue. We hope that on other offices that are still facing the challenges of long queue and the issue of downtime will be also attended to. Chairperson, I just want to comment on the issue of collection of smart cards. I just want to check with the department if it is not possible for the mobile unit to return back for the old age people to collect their smart card rather than traveling long distances for collection and paying extra money for transport. For an example, Chairperson, 2 weeks back, there was a mobile unit in Moretele for the old age to apply for their smart cards. And now they are being told that they should collect their smart card in Brett. And Brett is a long distance from Moretele to Brett. It's almost 1 hour, 20 minutes to arrive there. So thinking of those old age, it will be very impossible for them to go there. So I just want to check with the department that is it possible to make easier for them to be able to collect their smart card. Yeah, we appreciate that the mobile units are coming time and again to Moretele for people to come and apply for their smart card. But the challenge is for the collection because they have to travel for a long distance. But otherwise, Chairperson, we would like to welcome the report and the progress made has been presented. We hope that other challenges will be attended to as a matter of urgency. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mulekwa, for your contributions. Honorable Tito.
Thanks, Chair. Greetings to everyone who is present and also my colleagues, Chair. My first question will be, what are the overall stats for vandalism of the various network infrastructures, and to what extent is this a problem compared to modernization and aging equipment? And also, Chair, what interventions are used to prevent the vandalism and theft of network infrastructures? And does the SITA know what percentage of data lines servicing the Department of Home Affairs are still copper, and what the fiber rollout plans for these are? Chair, I will also like to comment on what the DG was saying last week, saying that on a weekly basis they are having meetings on checking how which problems and progress they are doing like that. And can he maybe give us a clear also indication today on how far are they having progress in those in those weekly meetings in terms of curbing the long queues at the Home Affairs departments? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tito, for your contributions. Honorable Kwase. Honorable Ross.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just leave my camera off for the sake of everybody's bandwidth. Firstly, thank you to DDG Mavuso and to SITA for the presentations. I think I'm going to jump straight into it. You know, to our understanding, there's a few elements of this whole war on queues, and the one is the system, the SITA system. Then there's connectivity. Then there's the office connections to actually hook onto that connectivity and access the system. Then there's power, the issue of power, and then there's queue management. So if we start with the system, I think it's been presented in 2019 already that Home Affairs has a bronze agreement, and this entitles them to 95% uptime. And when you work this out, this means that there can be up to 18.25 days of downtime, according to that kind of an agreement. But when you pay that amount of money for a bronze agreement, then it's unfair to expect the service provider to provide you with gold or platinum, because you're only giving them a certain amount of money to provide that level of uptime. And so my question in terms of the system is, what plan is there to upgrade to a more suitable contract so that SITA is then able to invest in the infrastructure to keep the system up more? Because my understanding from the presentation we got is they already keep it up actually about 99% of the time. But I think the fact that DHA has a bronze service level agreement makes it very difficult, because it doesn't allow SITA to make the necessary investment in that system. Then if we go to connectivity, in 2019, again, we received a presentation. It said that only 35 offices out of 691 have a backup link. And we were told that Home Affairs is the only major government department not to have dual communication links. So I want to understand, why is that? Why is it that Home Affairs is the only government department not to have dual communication links? Whether this has been resolved, because I'm trying to gather that from here, but it looks like it's still being resolved. And what I don't understand, if there's all this work, we were told that there's going to be a 2-year contract and all of this was going to be sorted out. That 2 years has now passed. If these things are being fixed systematically, why don't we see a systematic improvement? So, for example, maybe you'd start with the large offices and you improve them one by one, and then you say, right, we've done the large offices here, it's done. So why are we not seeing this? And I'll give an example of Edenvale, for example. So Edenvale had a temporary MTN router, which was set up because they had cable theft. Because they suffered cable theft regularly, and that router was then there to help them. I mean, I'm logged on now on my phone because we have load shedding over here. So why are we not using more of these routers then as a simple solution while we are spending hundreds of millions on this big network connectivity issue? Surely all large offices at least should have some sort of an MTN router or Vodacom, whatever the brand is, because that's where a large amount of the queues would be. Then in terms of office connections, I think what we are receiving here as a presentation is making it look as if infrastructure vandalism and network connectivity is the main cause of what's going on. But if I refer back again to 2019 in the report we received, it showed that over 90%, 9 out of 10 incidents of Home Affairs systems downtime were caused by issues inside the Home Affairs offices as a result of outdated equipment, where we were told that 88% of the equipment is obsolete. So I just want to understand, has this changed? Because if 90% of your incidents are caused by that, then that is why at the end of August, we said, why is this not being resolved? And the Minister of Communications at the time acknowledged this and said, no, that's correct. And challenged Home Affairs to match SITA's investment in the network by fixing their equipment inside their offices. So it's been a year since we received that commitment. And I just want to get clarity because it wasn't 100% clear to me. Have the 1,000 updated network switches been replaced? And if not, why have they not been replaced? Where are we at with this? When is that going to happen? Then if we move on to the power issue, we're told that 200 offices have UPSs. But my question is, how many are operational? Because recently I've been to Garankuwa, for example, Somerset West. Both of them have UPSs. Both of them are not working. And both of them are waiting for some service provider to come and fix it. So I've said this time and time again to the DG as well, is that the cost of fixing this is surely much less than the cost of how many lost applications there are while the system is down. And even worse, the cost for each person that is standing in that queue that is told to go away or whatever because power is down and the UPS is not working. And then even when power comes back on, it takes about half an hour for the system to synchronize and come back on. So if we can get clarification on those UPSs, how many are operational and why are they not being repaired quicker? It seems to be taking months to repair UPS. Then finally, moving on to the queue management, I think the BABS is great. It's something the DA was calling on for many years. But DDG, you show a tweet, and it seems like some message from a Facebook group. And my concern with the BABS, I really think it's great. In fact, from what I saw at Somerset West, sometimes it's oversubscribed. I think there were a few people that had an appointment for the same time. But there's no doubt it's great. But the concern was at Acacia, for example, where there was only 30% utilization. And as we were there were a long queue of people in the queue, but the BABS terminal was just standing there empty. And we'd raised it in this committee when the BABS was being discussed, and we said, what is going to be done for the poor and the disadvantaged, people that don't have smartphones or the internet? What is going to be done to allow them to also book on this booking system? Then the banks, obviously taking persons out of the queues at the offices helps. And in the presentation, we're told that the delay has been because of SITA's turnaround times on network connectivity issues. But when I raised the issue of Absa Stellenbosch, why is that bank not operational? I was told it's because there's no Home Affairs official. So if we just get clarification on this, all of these banks that need to be open, do they require a Home Affairs official? Or is it just a network connectivity? Because I can't imagine that a bank doesn't have very good connectivity to any sort of a system. Then I'm closing off, Chair, with just a few more points. I think another key thing and a challenge with this, as much as there are queues at the moment, I think a challenge as well is, from what we've seen, old persons are still not brought to the front of the queue. And I had another inquiry this week. It was a 70-year-old man who's trying to apply for his passport at Brakpan, and he just couldn't get to the front of the queue. And I submitted the issue. I saw it myself at Somerset West. We spoke to persons in the queue. We went inside. I asked if there's queue management of people being brought to the front. I was told yes. But then I went outside and pointed out, there is an old person way at the back of the queue. And it seems as if it's being left to security. It seems like the security guard is supposed to monitor the queue, which is probably a little bit unfair. But I'd just like to understand, where are we at with this queue management? Because my understanding is that when this issue was blowing up, I think it was about a year and a half ago, the minister had said he's going to start putting some queue marshals out there in key positions. So I just want to understand where exactly we are with this queue management. And then finally, just a question of interest. I saw that 10 posts were filled for the refugee reception office in Cape Town. So I'd just like to understand, is this office open yet? Because my understanding was from the beginning of this month, it's going to be refurbished and handed over, etc. So I just want to understand, are these 10 persons for that office that isn't open yet? And if so, what are they doing right now? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Ross, for your contributions. Honourable Pile.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, firstly, let me appreciate the progress that has been made and the interventions that have been implemented thus far. Chair, my first question is in relation to the rollout to banks. And I think the question that we are going to ask as members of the committee is, what is the delay? We know that it's there. We've received reports. We've received status reports, updates continuously. And I think the biggest question that we're all going to ask once again this morning is, what is the delay? And perhaps the department can tell us what the delays are so that we are able to unlock those challenges and ensure that that program is actually rolled out. Chair, the second one is a request for an audit of all generators and backup systems in modernized offices, particularly for us to be able to establish those that are functional, those that are not, that are possibly not working, and then those that require maintenance. Because I think one of the challenges is that when you leave it for a long time without having regular maintenance, then it means it's not going to work. And if we have placed these generators at a cost in these offices to be able to assist with load shedding, etc., then we have to be able to audit that and be able to correct the challenges that we experience around this. And then when will backup power systems, I know it won't be generators, but backup power systems be rolled out to those offices that are not modernized, because they also have a function, and it's important that the public and South Africans are not left for hours without having to get services because they don't have any power backup systems in their offices. Then in respect of BAVs, I think, Chair, we must applaud the introduction of tablets that are being used in offices to assist, especially in the queues. And I think it's something that is quite innovative, that you have people standing in queues, and when you advise that you can actually do a booking, instead of waiting, people will actually opt for taking a booking and then returning to have the application done. But Chair, I also want to know, can we have these tablets also provided to the offices that are not what we may call smart offices or modernized offices that are actually doing smart cards? Because when you go to that office, especially for first-time applications, and if you are told you can actually do a smart card at the nearest DHA office, clients will opt to book for that smart card instead of having to do a green barcoded ID. So I think it's important for us to be able to also provide these tablets to the non-modernized offices. And then the question I have is, are we going to move to a complete or fully booking system? And if so, when? Because that then will just tell us that we are going to move completely to that at some point, and then we must start working towards that so that we are able to be fully functional on the booking system. I think just to add on to what Honorable Ruas said in respect of those persons that may not have access to smartphones, etc., there was a discussion, Chair, about creating a USSD, I think it is, where you are able to use any mobile phone, not just a smartphone, to be able to access, booking system. Then in respect of SITA and downtime, I'm just asking, Chair, have we considered LTE for live capture and applications as an alternative? Because then it means that if we have this as a backup or alternative to provide the LTE routers, it would obviously assist in downtime. And I think it's important for us to be able to explore the options of LTE. And then we've been listening to the decentralization of networks and systems. And I think just listening to the presentation from SITA, it tells us about how you can access from another network so that if there is downtime, you can still continue and proceed. And I think it's a step in the right direction, because decentralizing would mean that we're not reliant on one system across the country. Like for example, now, if you have a system that's down, it means the entire country is down. And I think we must be able to see how we are able to tap into this, especially since we are in the fourth IR. There are many ways in which we can be able to use alternative systems to be able to ensure that our work continues. And then, Chair, lastly, just to look at some kind of feasibility, and one of the things that we can explore is looking as to what do the banking institutions in South Africa use in terms of their systems, because, I must be honest that banks have very limited offline or downtime, and perhaps we need to explore the ideas of what is it that they use that we could also be able to tap into or learn in terms of best practices to ensure that we have limited downtime or at some point no downtime. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pillay, for your contributions. Can I check if Honorable Khwasesh is back? Okay, I think members have made their contributions to the presentations. The only one area where I wanted the...
Chairman, are you closed for contributions now? I have not been given an opportunity.
Yeah, you're not in the meeting, that's why.
No, I've been in the meeting from the beginning, Chairperson.
Okay, no, apologies.
Yes.
I could not recognize you. Thanks, Honorable Mokale. It's not deliberate, you can proceed.
All right, no, thank you very much. Let me start by welcoming the presentation from SITA. But I just have two quick questions that I just wanted to pose, Chairperson. The first one being, in terms of the BABS system that is being currently utilized at Home Affairs, what has been the impact in terms of the reduction in the queues, especially in the areas where there were problems? So if we can get maybe a list, maybe that will show us to say that maybe here in Pretoria, CBD, the queues used to be this much, then the introduction of the system has been able to reduce the queues by this much, so that maybe we can also go ourselves and verify if that is the case, Chairperson. And then secondly, with regards to the use of the banks to make bookings and so on, I'm not sure if the department is only utilizing private banks. Have they considered maybe partnering as well with our what do you call post office, particularly in some of the small towns in the country which don't have Home Affairs offices. So I just wanted to pose those two questions, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Honorable Mukhale, for your contributions. I think, DM, if you recall, just a refresh, when DDG Mavuso was still the acting DG, the committee did rejected the report of joint report of SITA and Home Affairs. And it was on the basis that there were no accurate details in terms of the work to be undertaken that will positively assist our people in terms of the service work, which is aligned to the IT system and the long queues that we've demonstrated in our deliberations at that time. I'm raising this point that we can draw progress since that time and in our subsequent two meetings with SITA and DHO. So this presentation, it brings closer to, or it has impacted in terms of responsive challenges that the department has been having in the period since our session. And I think that is an appreciation that the committee may need to take home. The two issues which I think are of also interest is the issue of the banks, which at that time until now it has been raised, and you can demonstrate that there's a little or there's no exact positive work that has been done for our people to directly access services in these institutions, either these private banks or post office or the traditional banks that are emerging. And in your presentation, I think there's a high line there that says the delays is because of the connectivity sponsor or turnaround time of SITA that for Home Affairs. So if you can also expand on that area, because you have listed many institutions that will assist our people, including in the rural areas where these banks, I can cite one bank in Polokwane, where you have installed these things, Home Affairs area, but for the past 5 years, nothing has happened. And I'm told also you have ultimately removed that branding. So I think it will be important to labor more so that members of the committee, when they go to the ground to test what you are presenting to the committee, at least this may be progress of the work that has been done. If you can just expand on that area, including the aging equipment that you have been have raised in the presentation. The DM will then request the DDG to guide, to respond, DDG Mavuso. I know there's a matter that Honorable Ross raised lastly on the refugee center. And then we'll then request Deputy Chair of the board. She will delegate who must respond on SITA, and then we'll invite the Deputy Minister to respond. If there are follow-ups from members, they will also have that opportunity. DDG Mavuso?
Chairperson? Chairperson?
No, so sorry. There's a also, Mr. Maton, sorry, there's a note from a community member through Honorable Zell. Just read that note, in relation to the subject matter here, Mr. Matonzi. I'd forgotten. Yes.
Okay, Chairperson. Yeah, here I've got two questions from Ms. van der Merwe. Then the first one is the online booking system should always allow for some walk-in, especially the offices in rural areas. People travel from far, spending their last money with their certified documents. If they are only allowed to book an appointment 1 or 2 months later, they have lost their transport money for nothing, plus their certified documents prescribed are no longer valid. That is in relation to the BAP system. Then there's the second one, Chair, is that the new trucks, that is the mobile trucks, are amazing. They are able to connect to the mainframe and print documents immediately, e.g. unabridged birth certificates take 6 months or more at DHA offices, whereas the trucks parked outside the office can provide it in 2 minutes. Could you, okay, they are saying, could you ask why the offices can't also use the same connectivity system that the trucks are using? Because the trucks are parked outside the DHH offices when there's load shedding. That's all, Chairperson, from Ms. van der Merwe.
Thank you, Mr. Matonzi, for those notes. DDG Mavuso?
Yeah, Chair.
Oh, DM?
Yeah, Chair, can I just request to slightly change the approach in terms of questions, in terms of responding? I suggest that we start with the DG, because even though Mr. Mavuso was leading the process, but some of the issues we have to respond to, they touch the department overall, and then we allow Mr. Mavuso to then come in, then SITA, as you had proposed. I'm just requesting that we also take the DG at first. Thanks.
Oh, no, noted. I thought it's DDG Mavuso is leading the delegation. I was not advised that the DG is in the meeting. Thanks, DG.
No, thanks, Chair. Good morning, Deputy Minister. Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members. And thanks for the questions that have been raised. Maybe let's start with the last two that were raised by Honorable van der Merwe with regards to the booking system. The booking system at the moment, Chairperson, we do cater. It's a hybrid approach where we accept walk-ins at any of the offices. There's no office that's not accepting any walk-ins. And of course, the second part will be the booking. So obviously, incrementally, we will want to make sure that we have offices that rely solely on the booking service, and we also provide an alternative for those that do not have access to the booking system. I think linked to this will be a question that Honorable Pillay has raised with regards to the USSD. And you'll recall, Honorable Pillay, when we launched the BAPS, we said it's a pilot. So it's a prototype, which means once we have verified the stability of the system, incrementally, the system allows us to introduce other innovations, such as the USSD, which means, therefore, that anyone can utilize any mobile phone to booking or to access any of our offices. So that's with regards to the last ones. I think on the trucks that Honorable van der Merwe has raised, it's a matter that DDG Mavuso has dealt with in terms of connectivity. If you look at the satellite connectivity, it works much better, in particular in those rural areas. I think, Chairperson, maybe before I hand over to Mr. Mavuso, you asked a question with regards to upscaling the partnership with the banks. And in the presentation by DDG Mavuso, he did say that we've just renewed the MOU with the banks until 2023. And of course, the one concern that they've raised has really been around system instability, which is a matter that SITA has committed to, and we've shared that with the banks. And on the basis of that, they were then able to renew that MOU with the banks. We do take your point around expanding the footprint with regards to the banks, but also the replacement for aging equipment that might still be there. And then Honorable Tito asked a question around the cost. I think the cost, Chair, for cable theft, if you were to look at the figures that were released by the Chamber of Commerce, they range between 5 to 7 billion rand annually. Now, in certain instances where we rely on technology or fiber technology from Transnet Freight Rail, that has an impact because probably SITA relies on that connectivity as well. It has a huge impact, and it might be difficult for us to provide Honorable Tito with very specific figures in terms of Home Affairs. But overall, that's the figure that the South African Chamber of Commerce has indicated. We suffer as a country between 5 to 7 billion rand on an annual basis. And then Honorable Ross, just to go back, the issue that you've raised around the level where we are, the bronze level. We indicated to the committee when we appeared before you that there was a proof of concept that we worked on with SITA, and emanating from the outcomes of that proof of concept, the department then looked at the outcomes, and we were not at that point convinced that it will increase the level that you are referring to in terms of the connectivity. However, if we were to look at the investment that SITA is making now in terms of the infrastructure, we hope that it should improve the connectivity. And then I think the issue that Honorable Molekwa raised with regards to Moratel, it's a matter that DDG Mavuso will respond to. And then there's an issue that you raised, Honorable was with regards to the ABSA branch in Stellenbosch. There was a person that was appointed to go and work at that branch. Unfortunately, that person resigned after only working for a month. And as a result, we now need to find another replacement, and the province will be looking into that matter. I think let me then hand over to DDG Mavuso to respond to issues raised by Honorable Mohale, Honorable Pillay, Honorable Ross, and also yourself, Chairperson. Thank you.
DDG Mavuso.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members. So the issue that Honorable Molekwa is raising on the mobile trucks that were in Moratel, indeed, Chair, the issue of going back to the area to give back the IDs is something that is going to be implemented. So we'll look into that specific one. For an example, schools, the truck does go back to deliver those ID books, so those smart cards. So we'll look into the question of Brits, of Moratel, so that they don't have to go back to Brits. I think DG, we said that Home Affairs was the only government department with no dual links. No, implement dual links in certain offices. You can't be paid for two lines that terminate at the same area. If the office has got dual links, it must terminate at different areas so that when that particular that switching center is off. So we should not be having dual lines. So we need to ensure that this line is, if it's Western Cape was taking us to, when we talked about each of the designing the network, we meant exactly that. So now it's being done in relation to those green areas which I was showing to Cape Town, Bishop to Cape Town, to create those multiple links to avoid. Then the second area, Chair, is on the issue of the functional indicated. We will actually be a top analysis of what is functional, and then that audit we can be able to complete. So we'll ask the team from property management. Ross is raising an issue and what is going to be done for the poor who don't have access to tablets or digital gadgets that can be allow them to make bookings. Precisely, Honorable Ross, that is why we're saying every office, we're giving them the access to tablets in order for us to be able to do this, because we're responding to a challenge. That challenge said you have queues, so create a system to be able to do that. So those people are going to be assisted in that regard. I think it's the same question that was asked by, I think it's Honorable Mukhale, to say what impact has BAPS had in terms of the queues. Unfortunately, honorable members, remember we introduced BAPS in our offices since the 1st of June this year, and we've been scaling it up now. By this end of October, we've only reached 163 offices. So there are two issues that I talked about. It was communications and change management for our staff, and also communicating to staff, but also changing the mindset and human behavior of our citizens who for decades, they have been used to go faster. So it's a question of us assessing this over a period of time. So we'll do a 6 months, a 12 months review and see what has been that particular impact. But I think for now, I would say, yes, it is too early to have a scientific analysis of the impact, but we're just taking those individual isolated cases. That's why even in the presentation, we're showing what has been placed on social media and what people have been giving us individually in terms of that. The DG has dealt with the standard ABSA Stellenbosch issue, which obviously relates to of the agreement with the banks, was that it was going to give us those warm bodies. So we still expect of in the finalization, once we've done that, those warm bodies will come through. There are probably isolated cases that are not systemic, as in to those managers, because this is their responsibility, the managers, to from time to time to walk the floor and be able to determine the elderly people that are in the queues as a matter of practice. So we've institutionalized that. That is why even live capture has got a feature on the meter creator where you are able to prioritize people. If an elderly person, a pregnant woman, a child in school uniform is at the back, they can be brought forward. If you are then be prioritized, their ticket will be called before the ticket that was actually in front, on the basis that we are prioritizing. So obviously it's something that we're instilling in our managers to be on the lookout for that, so that we are able to deal with that issue, not leave it to security guards. But just say that I think Centurion offices perhaps, and I think the clients who have been there, they've given us positive results. Honorable Chair, I think on the issue of the refugee reception office in Cape Town, as I said, that work is continuing. We would obviously avoid the process of recruitment until the office is finished. And then you wait for 6 months office ID because there's no people to run the office. So the process is being run parallel, so that once you have your people appointed and your
Deputy Minister.
Yeah, I think Mr. Mavuso has dealt.
If
Mr. Mavuso's network is bad.
Mr. Mavuso? Mr. Mavuso,
before the office is ready, we have other offices where those people can be deployed for the purpose of training and also to ensure readiness. But obviously, that's a matter that will be dealt with by the DDG Immigration Services with this team. Yes, Chair, I'm still here. I'm here, Chair.
Okay. No, we're saying that. Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mavuso. I think your network is bad, but at least you have captured all the responses. Can I get Deputy Minister?
No, thank you, Chair. I think we can then take the Deputy Chair of SITA to make comments together with their team. If they have got any comments, then I will come up after that, as you had suggested, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think from our side, it's just questions surrounding connectivity and maybe one quantitative question on the percentage of data lines. I'm going to ask Mr. Tenya to take the questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Mr. Tenya.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, DM, Deputy Chair. Let me then zoom into a few issues that have been raised. Starting off, I think with maybe a number of issues that came from Honorable Rios, just around the system, the connectivity, and then some of the power and queue management issues, which I think most of those have really been spoken to. But perhaps just to add that, yes, indeed, currently we are providing, that bronze service at 95%. And I think actually the DG has touched on that as well, that we have now just concluded the POC on the gold service level agreement. We've looked into that. And of course, there are issues related to the dual, links, redundancies that we then would want to look at in those areas so that we can see the total benefit of the gold, service level agreement. So those we have worked on and we have looked at, and we've been looking at where are then those sites that perhaps we can then start with in terms of the gold service level agreement. But we continue to do our best in making sure that we continue to deliver the services in that regard. I think there was also then a question around, I think it was from Honorable Tito, around the vandalism, stats and wanting to know what then is the stats in terms of copper and so forth. I think the vandalism has also, clearly captured, Chairperson, in the presentation. It's really very, very high at this point in time, to be honest. We have had, engagements even, at the board level to really say, look, we really need to now really look into what needs to be done. Do we now even look into issues of law enforcement and how will that then work? Because these things are now happening daily, on the BBI, core network. You have seen in the presentation in some instances where you would have, this fiber cuts, in 3 areas of the fiber, where these cuts are happening. The rate has really increased quite fundamentally. Hence, we started talking about the economic vandalism. Some of these cuts would be happening in areas where you can see that somebody really had to take extra effort, to really be able to unplug or cut, the fiber and the connections. So it is really very, very worrying. It's very, very high. And I think vandalism also, when it comes to what DDG Mavuso was talking on about, high value things like copper. Sometimes you find that even in a day, as soon as you've replaced the copper, you then immediately would have it stolen again. So that happens very, very frequently. And I think is the issue that really needs to be looked at to then say, what are then some of the alternatives that we can then be able to put in place to circumvent, the challenge that we have. And of course, one is to try and, move from your high value, copper, into other means of connectivity that would not, excite vandalism at that level. And hence, some of the investments around our software defined networks, of course, putting in fiber in terms of those links, those are just some of the things that are being looked at in making sure that we address the issues. I think I was trying to just look at some of the stats. We have already been upgrading, up to about 118 of some of the DigiNet lines, which will be your old, very low connectivity lines. Of course, ideal would be that we would then move into fiber, but then that, of course, then talks to the investment plan that we have been talking to in the presentations. I think in terms of things like live capture, I think both Honorable Ruos, Honorable Pillay did touch on usage of other technologies, LTE and so forth. So live capture, maybe just to update that this already is on LTE and fiber, and as you've heard from the presentation, we've already now started moving into looking into a web-based application to make sure that we've got easy access there, and that work is ongoing. So we're happy about that. I think also just in terms of minimizing fundamentally this outages, we spoke also about the internet failover alongside the NPR failover that DDG spoke to in the presentation, and like we were saying, since the March of 2022, the close of the previous financial year, we really have had 100% uptime, and internet obviously also contributes significantly to us reducing the outages. So that is something very positive as well, that has ensured that we maintain very high uptimes. I think the DG has also then spoken to the issue of putting the value to the losses that come as a result of the vandalism and all of that. I will not go back to that. I think what is important also is just to indicate that parallel to the investment plan that we've been talking to, we have also then on the Telkom BCX side, from the SITA side, we've also then moved ahead into extending, the contract that we've got with them for an additional 18 months, which also then is going to help quite significantly in terms of migrating the majority of the DigiNet lines that I was talking about. So we've got an MOA there that has now been extended. So that will also help us quite significantly. I think in terms of the other issues, I think the DG has covered those at the high level from an infrastructure perspective. I think I will leave it at that. But if you can allow me, Chairperson, if perhaps Hulisani from our networks feels there's anything that I've left out here in terms of the questions directly to SITA, if maybe he wants to just come in and talk to one of those issues, if any. Chairperson, if you can allow me.
Thank you.
All right,
thank
thanks.
you, Ndudule. Yeah, I think you've covered it, maybe perhaps except just on addition to, what you spoke to now in terms of the investment plan, wherein now we've now appointed BCX. In addition to that, we've also concluded the contract for the new service providers for the access links, wherein we are now phasing out all the corpus. Now we'll have like minimum of 10 meg for all our access links. So that part, Northwest, we have concluded. We have also received approval now. We'll be going out on a market to then also start the similar process for the rest of the provinces. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Is there any other?
Thank you, Chair. I think we have covered all the questions in the healthy manner. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Minister?
No, thank you very much, Chair. I think most of the questions have been answered, but just to emphasize on the few, I think the one about on Honorable Ross on the Cape Town office, the only issue that we are waiting for there are occupational certificates from the landlord. That's where we are now with the process. I actually went myself to actually view the building that we're occupying there and its suitability. We are just waiting for the occupation certificates. Then we'll then start operating from that office. The manner in which we had initially designed the mobile unit was that they were going to be able to collect applications only. I'm referring to the question now asked by Honorable Asnath on the mobile units. Immediately after that, when we came in, we said that we must be able to upgrade our applications there so that they do not just take applications, but they can also be in a position to issue out documents. And that is why now they're able to issue out smart ID cards. I have personally gone into an old age home in Pulukwane. If I remember very well, we were together, Chair, there, where we actually issued identity documents to an old age home. So it's only an issue of proper coordination and planning. And I can assure you that we will look into that area as to why we were not able to issue them. But the mobile units actually have the capacity to both collect and also to issue the applications. On the issue of banks, I think Honorable Pillay asked a very important question. Our model of operation is almost similar to the one of banks. The service that we offer is almost similar in terms of back-end requirements to what banking institutions also need. And that is why we went and try to get experts from the banks, but now we are sticking with CSIR. I think some of the issues we'll have to deal with between us and SITA because the banks were willing to give us advice. But we are looking at an overall issue of our network architecture and how we deal with it. Whilst we are still looking at the overall issue, we can't leave out the immediate interventions that have been able to release some pressure. I will not agree that the situation has remained the same despite of this intervention. The situation has improved, but not to the level where we actually want it to be. And that is why we are continuing to make these necessary interventions. The booking system does not in any way stop a person who comes to stand in the queue and then get service. We do not turn people back on the basis that they are not on the booking system. In fact, the booking system will be saving people money because you will be coming on the dates that you are guaranteed that you are going to be serviced. So as we expand it, we are not going to say because you did not book, therefore we are not going to be servicing you. I do not understand the issue of birth certificates that cannot be issued on the spot. Birth certificates, if all the necessary documentation is there, whether you are in an office, whether you are in a mobile unit, we issue them on the spot, provided that all documentation is there. We really do take the advice that we have been given and the wisdom of the portfolio committee on how they think we should go about in improving our client services and how do we improve our back-end systems in order to offer better services to our client. And we really value your advice. And when we go back into our own meetings and our own plannings, we then consider all that we have spoken about and all the suggestions that we have made. And we are quite grateful to the committee. And I think we have sufficiently responded to the questions of the members, and we'll continue to do our work to make sure that we improve client service. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, for a detailed response. We, on behalf of the committee, want to appreciate and note the report as it has been presented. It demonstrates progress has been made, collaboration between yourselves and the SITA. The funds that has been put so that we're able to run the programs as has been set. And I think that is the demonstration of work in progress that will respond to the services of our people. We want to take that appreciation. As I recollected earlier on that from the inception of our deliberation on this subject, there were challenges, and now we can identify ourselves with the recommendation of the committee and the attention you have paid to, so that you respond to the issues that members of parliament have raised in relation to the challenges that our members of community have came across. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Deputy Minister, and your team, Deputy Chair of SITA and your team, for having interacted with the committee and issues that have been raised in terms of the recommendations, take them so they're able to collectively respond to the challenges that are faced by our people. Deputy Minister, we will also take note of the practical visits to the sites, offices, in our course of work, just to test some of the areas that you have intervened, so that members of the committee are able to appreciate the work that has been done. If challenges are going to be identified, obviously we'll come back to the committee and you highlight them with your team so that you're able to correct some of those issues that are being raised. I want to take this opportunity to thank members for having deliberated and noting this report as a progress report since our meetings and issues that we've raised to the department and SITA. And I think we can demonstrate, identify progress thus far on the issues that have been captured. Mr. Matonzi, is there any other matter that you want to raise before we stand off this meeting?
No, Chairperson, but I'm not sure if you still want me to read that email or we'll leave it out.
No, that email you'll direct it to the Director General, Mr. Makode, and in our next meeting, you'll then brief the committee in the response on that issue, in particular on that area, and his interaction with the complainant.
Okay, Chair. No, there's nothing from my side, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, members. Thank you, DM and your team and SITA, and our meeting stand adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, bon.